Aging muscle or disuse. Let's look at some studies of elderly muscle. This is from the age of 20 years to 8 years old. According to studies, there is a 30% decline in power and 40% decline in surface area. The loss of power is due to loss of muscle mass, decline in number of type 1 and type 2 fibers, as well as the size. What are type 1 and type 2 fibers? Anyway, type 2 fibers are the fast fibers which you have in your legs, in your thighs, that let you run really fast. The other, all of them are other ones are type.
Let's look at this graph. Look at this muscle strength on y-axis and the age is on the x-axis, and you could see that curvature, the red line. Initially the muscle strength increases with age, and after certain age clearly it drops down. Let's look at the other graph here. Muscle mass and strength on the y-axis, age is on the x-axis. There are two graphs there. The bottom one is a general aging graph which initially increases with early age, and the adult age it slightly comes down, and the old age it really declines. Let's look at these MRI scans. There are two there. On the top there is a 40-year-old triathlon, and the bottom one is a 74-year-old sedentary man. If you look at the first one, it's all clearly says it's a clear muscle, the clear cut. And the second one, all the white area is covered is the fat or adipose tissue, as it says there. So with aging, the muscles being replaced as fats. As I said, with age, the muscle size, muscle number both declines, and there's a lot of fat which replaces the muscle. So what is this talk about? Let's look at this 42-year-old man and the 70-year-old man. Both have similar body mass index, but you could see loss of quantity and quality of the muscle in the second chap, the 70-year-old man. All the red and the orange coloring represents fat.
Is it too late? Muscle power and function increase with exercise.
This is another study. You could see muscle power and function increase with exercise, endurance training. Endurance training delays age of decline in leg strength and muscle morphology. Let's look at strength training. It is well documented that strength training can reduce muscle atrophy associated with aging. A number of investigations have reported the ability of older men to not only maintain but to increase strength and muscle fiber cross-sectional area consequent to resistant training regimen. Let's look at the mechanism of improvement. Endurance exercise training has been shown to increase the VO of soleus muscle by 20%. The increase could have been caused by either a small increase in all or most of the fibers, or the conversion of few fibers from slow to fast. These are the fibers we talked about, the fast fibers and slow fibers. Fast fibers are type 2, which you need to run fast. Let's look at old age fiber replacement. Vigorous endurance training in older people where the stimulus is progressively increased elicit proliferation of muscle capillaries and an increase in oxidative enzyme activity and a significant improvement in VO2 max. Progressive resistant training in older individuals results in muscle hypertrophy and increased strength. The training stimulus is of sufficient intensity and duration. Old age an excuse? Since older individuals adapt to resistive and endurance training in similar fashion to young people, the decline in muscle, metabolic, and force producing capacity can no longer be considered as an inevitable consequence of aging process. Rather, the adaptation in skeletal muscle to exercise training may prevent sarcopenia, enhance the ease of carrying out of the activities of daily living, and exert a beneficial effect on such age-associated disease such as type 2 diabetes, coronary artery disease, hypertension, osteoporosis, and obesity. So there is no excuse. Let's look at this bar chart. Here, no motor unit loss in the tibial anterior muscle of master runner who is 65 years old. The dark black one is a young person. He's got about motor units about 150, and a normal old person he has lost here and he's got about 80-85. But if you see the master runner, the cornermost one, the grey, is a 65-year-old, and he's got almost equal number as that young adult. Let's look at this graph here. So does exercise prevent or reverse the effect of aging? On the y-axis you got physiological function, and the x-axis you got age. And this is a normal chart where initially in the young age your ability of exercise and effect which increases, then at middle age it started declining. That's a normal decline. But if the person started training, you could see the arrow where the training starts, then the arrow has been shifted upwards and he get some extra beautiful years where he's got more ability to do more normal stuff. Let's look at the effects of sports on elderly muscle. It is becoming more apparent that skeletal muscle is a tissue that remains responsive to exercise interventions throughout the lifespan. The ability of aged skeletal muscle to respond to exercise, especially resistive exercise, in the same fashion as young muscle suggests the skeletal muscle retains an inherent plasticity not necessarily observed in other aging tissues. Sometimes it's difficult to study muscle function in human because you take repeated biopsy samples, which is very painful. So they used a brown Norway rat, which is long enough to do this study. Training improved endurance, muscle function and metabolic response in late middle-aged animals. So this is a good example for human as well. It works exactly same in the human. Now let's look at these two samples of muscle. This is an MRI sample of a 74-year-old sedentary man and a 70-year-old triathlon. If you look at the top picture, it's a huge amount of white area. That white area is adipose tissue. That's because of sedentary life and the muscles are filled up with white area. That's adipose tissue. And if you look at the second picture, the 70-year-old triathlon, it's completely gray. That's all muscles and you can't see any layer of fat. So if you exercising, that's what happens. Now what is the difference? Now you see the first sample is a 40-year-old triathlon. It's a thigh muscle, it's a MRI scan. The second one is a 74-year-old sedentary man, and the last one is a 70-year-old triathlon. So if you see the first one, it's completely covered by the gray area, that's all muscles. The second one is inside, you could see the darker area is the muscles and covered by adipose tissue or fat as you call it. And the last one is a triathlon, a 70-year-old, is completely gray. And if you compare the first one and the last one, it's exactly same. A 40-year-old man and a 70-year-old man has same amount of muscle.
This program showed with evidence that what happens to exercising muscle with aging. What is our excuse? Is it inability of our body or inability of our mind? We don't stop playing because we grow old. We grow old because we stop playing.